Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Monday, February 23rd, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, we'll hear from Variety's Rebecca Rubin on why the Sony Pictures family film Goat topped the box office and how Elvis in IMAX can still pack 'em in. And Variety's Aramide Tinubu discusses some of the overlooked gems on her recent list of the best black-led TV series of the past 10 years. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Where are we in the renewed bidding process for Warner Brothers Discovery? By many accounts, Paramount Skydance is about to up the ante to $32 a share. That's a significant jump from its previous $30 a share all-cash offer and higher than Netflix's deal all in. If Paramount does raise its bid, Netflix will have to make a move. Stay tuned to Variety.com and our social handles for the latest. And if you missed it on Friday, please seek out my interview with Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos. It was published on Daily Variety's sibling interview podcast, Strictly Business. Sarandos makes the case very eloquently and very passionately for why Netflix is the best owner for Warner Brothers and HBO. Sony Pictures TV is going for it with the Reading Rainbow relaunch. The studio launched 4 episodes of the beloved children's show last fall on Sony's Kizuko YouTube channel. Sony has ordered 24 more episodes of the series, hosted by social media star Michael the Librarian, and is shopping it to other outlets. Ashley Lyle and Bart Nicholson, creators of Yellow Jackets, have struck an overall deal with Paramount Television Studios. Harry Styles will be back on Saturday Night Live on March 14th. It will be his second time out doing double duty as host and musical guest. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. And now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. If it's Monday, we're talking box office with Rebecca Rubin, senior film and media reporter and Variety's box office chief. Rebecca walks us through a weekend that saw a quartet of new titles, but it was led by weekend 2 of the animated family film Goat from Sony Pictures and Steph Curry's unanimous media banner. Rebecca Rubin, thanks for joining me. I have spent the last couple of days watching people compete in various snow sports, in bobsleds and toboggans and on skis. I've been enjoying the Olympics. You have been watching a race at the box office between Goat and Wuthering Heights. Tell us who won this weekend, Rebecca.
It was not as exciting of a race as some of the Olympic Games, I'll just say that much. But heading into the weekend, it looked like it was going to be closer between Wuthering Heights and Goat for number 1, and Goat actually ended up pulling ahead. It made around $17 million in its second weekend, and then Wuthering Heights made about $14 million in its second weekend. So the fact that Goat, which is an original animated movie, a kind of film that has been struggling since really the pandemic, it's just a testament to the fact that family audiences are really, really hungry for new films.
How is Goat doing overseas?
So it hasn't opened yet in a handful of markets, but right now it's made about 40 million overseas, which brings its global tally to just over 100 million. And it's an encouraging sign that original animation, when it's done well and when people seem to like it, families will go out and see it.
How would you assess weekend 2 for Wuthering Heights?
It continues to really impress internationally. Over the weekend, it made $26 million, and so far it's made $91 million at the international box office and just over $150 million globally. So for a film of this size, Warner Brothers spent $80 million to produce it, not including the marketing spend. It's not a runaway hit by any means, but I think it's doing well enough.
I thought it was interesting that it just seemed like this week you had a real diverse slate of smaller releases, everything from an A24 black comedy starring Glenn Powell to a new Elvis in concert movie assembled by Baz Luhrmann, to a curious entry from 20th Century Studios and Disney, Psycho Killer. Was there anything about any of the newcomers that stood out to you this weekend?
The biggest of this weekend's new releases was the faith-based film I Can Only Imagine 2, which is from Lionsgate, and it made $8 million dollars in its opening weekend, and that's pretty far behind its predecessor, which was 2018's I Can Only Imagine, and that film opened to 17 million, which was a huge result for a film of this size and scale. It carries a pretty modest budget. These films tend to do better domestically than they do internationally. And so I don't think it'll be quite the breakout success of the first film, which ended up making $86 million dollars worldwide. But it should probably be a tidy little win for Lionsgate.
Did people turn out for the epic Elvis in concert movie?
The Elvis in Concert documentary is doing very well, actually. It opened to $3.2 million, dollars, and it's significant because it's actually playing on only 325 IMAX screens. And so that's a very small footprint to have made $3 million. It's going to expand in the coming weeks, but it's the only film that managed to crack the top 10 that's playing on less than 1,000 screens. And it's gotten really rapturous reviews from critics. So I imagine this one will be a nice little breakout in the concert films documentary space.
Elvis still has his pull. That's kind of heartening on some level. It's going to play more than a couple of weekends, right?
Yeah,
Someti
the Neon is releasing it and they're intending to expand it in the next few weeks.
Have you talked to folks about the year to date? Any sense of just in general how people are feeling right now about the box office year to date?
Every year, I think exhibitors start out cautiously optimistic, and this January and February has been pacing ahead of 2025, although that year was behind 2024. So the year needs to really pick up to get back to levels that resemble more pre-pandemic times, and right now the year to date is 5% over last year. The issue is that that percentage keeps shrinking as winter has drawn on. The good news is that there are some upcoming releases that should be promising. I think next weekend Scream 7 is supposed to have a big debut. Then there's a new Disney Pixar film, Hoppers, and supposed to be very good, and if that can have the legs that some of these other family films that we've been talking about have, that's a great sign as well for theaters. And then the first big blockbuster of the year should be the Super Mario Galaxy movie in early April, and so that's the one that really everybody's holding their breath for, and we saw that actually with the first Mario movie that came out a few years ago. We've seen in the past few years that January, February, and kind of March have been a bit slow, and then everybody waits to just go to one movie, and that will probably be, again, the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and so I'm expecting that to have the biggest opening weekend of the year so far.
Well, you end your story today with Mario and Luigi to the rescue. Thank you so much for breaking this down for us, Rebecca. We'll check in with you next week.
Thank you.
And now we turn to Aramide Tinubu, Variety's TV critic, who walks us through her detailed list of the best Black-led TV series of the past 10 years. Hello, Aramide Tinubu. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Cynthia. I really appreciate it.
You have just put up a critic's list that is very valuable. I think in this day and age when it is very easy to lose track of shows, lists that say, hey, here's shows that you might have missed are extremely valuable, and I love your voice on those things. You have come up with a collection of titles tied to Black History Month that you would suggest that people stop and take a second look at. Was there one show that you really loved that you wanted to write about that led you to doing this larger look?
There's a show that has haunted me, and I think it haunts a lot of people, actually, and that's Lovecraft Country. It came out on HBO in 2020, right as the George Floyd uprisings were happening, and it was incredible. It's a Misha Green production, and it was starring Jonathan Majors. We know that he has had his issues now, the late Michael K. Williams and Journey Smollett, along with Courtney B. Vance. And it is an exquisite piece of television. And it was Emmy nominated, I believe Emmy award winning, and it completely got canceled. I think this was before Majors had his things. I believe the following year, unfortunately, Michael K. Williams passed away. But it was just such an important, riveting, stunning work. It was shocking when it got canceled, but we were at this moment kind of between administrations, things were happening. So it was a shock that it got canceled. And one thing that I have noticed is since we're in a sort of current new wave of an administration that's kind of dismantling DEI, we're seeing again a sort of rollback of Black-led shows. So I wanted to look at the landscape over the last decade and see what happened.
Did you find even more than you remembered that was worth taking that second look at?
Definitely. So the list is comprised of 32 shows, which was quite a feat. That's why I narrowed it down from 2016 to present, because if I went back even further, it would be an endless show. But these are things that are readily accessible to people who have access to streaming services and things that they just, again, might have overlooked. So there's amazing shows, obviously, Abbott Elementary and Paradise, that are Black-led, that are still on the air. And some of the shows on my list are actually on the air, but they might be on smaller networks like a Stars. Or when I started looking back at 2016, another one of Misha Green's show that made it onto my list is Underground. It came out on WGN America. That network no longer exists, but it is available to stream on Hulu. So I also wanted to point our readers into the direction of where to find these shows. And it was important to me to get a spectrum. So there are, of course, slavery set and antebellum set series, but there's also modern day series like Queenie that are set in the UK, and Damascus, which is set in sort of an alternative universe. Something like Boots Riley's I'm a Virgo is set in an alternative universe that's kind of a like our world, but not quite our world. And I just wanted to get people talking about these series. I know for me, representation has always been so important and why I got into this business. And I know for a lot of Black people and people of color, representation continues to be extremely important, especially in this landscape.
Did you find were there producers that had shows that were just kind of overlooked who have now gone on to bigger and better things?
For sure, with Misha Green, I thought that was a really interesting to see her show in 2016 get canceled and then see a 2020 show at a different network get canceled. I thought it was also interesting. A lot of these one season or two season shows, they had playwrights behind them. So maybe people who are crossing over from theater into television. A lot of more like Vince Staples, for example, had the Vince Staples show, which was on Netflix for 2 seasons. So like creators, Kev on stage, his name is Kevin Fredericks. In real life, had a series called Church You on BET Plus. That's kind of in limbo. So there's a lot of limbo things and then a lot of interesting things in terms of we don't really know if these shows are canceled or we don't know when they'll come back. So Katori Hall, who is also a huge playwright, her series P Valley debuted to rave reviews in 2020 on Stars. And I know it's been the first and second season have come out. The third season, I believe, was shot last summer, but there's no word yet on when that will premiere. Or even someone like Natasha Rothwell, who we all know from Insecure and from The White Lotus. Her series, How to Die Alone, came out on Hulu last year. A fantastic series, like brilliantly written, brilliantly done and reviewed, and then it was canceled unceremoniously. So that is a bit heartbreaking. And I know that's not just Black-led shows, but because we have so fewer of our series and shows and stories being told, it hurts a little bit worse when they're just erased seemingly for no reason.
That's why these lists are so valuable. Aramide, in terms of really recent stuff, what are the one or two titles that you'd highlight for folks to make sure that they don't miss right now?
For sure. A couple of years back, Kindred, which was an adaptation of Octavia Butler's beloved novel, came to Hulu. It is incredible. It only lasted one season. It's about a young Black woman in 2018 in Los Angeles, and she gets sucked back in time to 1815 on a Georgia plantation. The book is also amazing. You can see the full, complete story there, but an incredible piece of work. It's only one season, but I think it's absolutely worth the watch. Another Hulu cancellation was Black Cake, again, adapted from a novel that came out, I believe, in 2023. A great, fantastic watch. Definitely something to put your eye on. Another show that's ongoing right now is Power Book 3: Raising Kanan. It is an incredible crime drama helmed, I believe, by Sasha Penn. It's on Stars, and it had just was renewed for its fourth and final season. So that's coming back hopefully this year or next year. But there's 32 on this list, and that's just within the past decade. So I encourage anyone to check them out.
I so appreciate your expertise and your fluency with all of this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate it.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. On Wednesday, Paramount Skydance reports its fourth quarter earnings. Warner Bros. Discovery unveils its fourth quarter numbers the following day. Surely there'll be more jousting between these two companies before and after. ESPN on Wednesday launches the women's soccer docuseries NWSL, The Final Third. It follows the end of the 2025 regular season for women's soccer with a specific focus on Los Angeles' Angel City FC, the Washington Spirit, and the Kansas City Current. Don't miss my colleague Clayton Davis's column that he wrote in response to what happened Sunday at the BAFTA Awards in London. What emerged was a heartbreaking and very complicated situation. Clayton gives us a clear-eyed view of what went wrong and why. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to Catherine Pope. The president of Sony Pictures Television Studios will be honored by the Alliance for Children's Rights with the organization's Champion for Children Award. The Alliance is an incredible and enduring organization that does amazing work for children in desperate straits. The event is March 19th. In Beverly Hills. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Rebecca Rubin and Aramide Tanubu. Sticks, Nicks, Hick, Picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice, and please tune in tomorrow for another episode of Daily Variety.